with anything that we approach in life, with anything that we want to take up, so much of it has to do with what our aspiration is. Why are we getting involved? So if our aspiration isn't clear, and that's all right if it isn't, as soon as we get involved with something, it starts to bring our questions forward and we start to gain more clarity. But whatever it is we aspire to, whatever is the most important thing, whatever it is we value, life is going to unfold accordingly. So if our interest is self-concern, like if we're still operating from a separate sense of self, from egoic tendencies, and awakening hasn't dawned yet, our vision isn't clear, often we'll be led from a place of confusion and clarity hasn't quite come yet. And there isn't anything wrong with that, because in the beginning, for many of us, our interest is to feel happy, to improve upon ourselves, to seek some particular kind of experience, to better ourselves, to add something on, to get rid of something, to move away from an experience that isn't pleasant. And inquiry hasn't really come on board yet. The deeper inquiry of finding out who we are, what reality is, what is this life all about? So it's very important to understand that from the beginning, that our interest is going to steer the ship. So I want to benefit of plant medicines prior to awakening, and also how they can be beneficial after awakening. Now, plant medicine, involves many different cultures. Now, you could say that even our culture, our European, our American culture, has plants as medicine. Like all food is essentially medicine. So if you go back before Western medicine was established and before it became industrialized and utilized more for different interests, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, that the teachings of the plants, their inherent wisdom, has been depleted. So when you visit indigenous cultures that are still in touch with plants as food, in their traditions, the plants are a healthcare system. And they also, every tradition has their own cosmology, just like any religion does. So when you visit a tradition or a country like Peru or Brazil or many other countries that are still in touch with their plants as medicine, and utilize them for sacred ceremonies, for healing, for guidance, the elements in the plants are still very rich and alive. So you could call them teachers, master plant teachers. And then what happens next is, the next thing to be able to consider is who's administering the plants. How have they been cultivated? Have they been cultivated in a sacred way? Are they being administered from their truest intention, their intention for healing, for healthcare, to bring a person back to their natural state? So this is the original message of all plants. And I'm sure that we have many plants in our countries as well that haven't even been utilized, have been lost, have been forgotten. So I wanted to just emphasize that this is why we can call plants master teachers, because when you ingest a plant, then you're able to receive its wisdom, its teaching. So for pre-awakening, before a person has eyes have been opened to see clearly who they are, where they're seeing, knowing directly yourself, myself, as awareness. So when this hasn't happened yet, and they're still seeking, the plants can function in such a way to remove addictions, depressions, darkness, can open us up to see how the mind operates, how different ingrained patterns get believed. So what happens is a seeing can open up. And when you ingest plants, there's a wisdom in there of no escape, because there it is. It's just you and the plant. So once this is in your body, you can't really escape it. So there you are. It's like sitting in a silent retreat for days and days and days. And you're really being asked and invited to look at every aspect of who you are, to look into those places that have been hiding, to look into those deeper recesses of pain and sorrow, of core beliefs that have been operating the body-mind system from a place of separation, from duality. So all of these pockets can be opened up to be able to be seen and released. So this is a very, very beautiful thing that can happen. And you could say that this doesn't create awakening, because awakening is already here. It's already your natural state. But we can utilize a multitude of resources to be able to lift whatever is in the way of seeing that. So I don't think there's any mistake that plant medicines have been created. They're a form in the very same way that a teaching is a form. It's a concept. It's a pointer. Just like Ramana Maharshi says, that you use a concept to remove another concept. And in the very same way, any kind of teaching, that's its purpose. The teaching isn't the end result. The teaching is what's utilized and pointing. It's pointing to something else. It's pointing to something that's already here that cannot be given to you and cannot be taken away. So I have seen tremendous benefit for people who the question or the inquiry, who am I, or the interest in reality or truth is very, very, very far from consciousness. It's just, they're in a stupor. They're heavily depressed. I know this from family members, from friends, from brothers and sisters that I've met all along the way, where there isn't at all an interest in truth. The interest is to just stop suffering, to be out of pain. So in this way, if you're brought to plant medicine, then all of these conditions that have been so deeply embedded in the body, mind, emotional system can be lifted, can be detoxified. In many ways, people say that working with plant medicine is like 10 years of therapy, of really good therapy, without the therapist. So in this way, plants are like doctors. They're like surgeons. They can go in very deeply. And all of that also depends on our approach, our attitude. So it's our aspiration, what is it we're interested in, and how we approach. So if we approach plant medicine in a responsible way, and we're in an environment where it's being delivered in a responsible way, with reverence, with honor for the plants and for what they bring, and it's been cultivated properly in right relationship with the earth, in right relationship with the tradition in which it has come from. And then we arrive with receptivity, with an openness to what it has to offer. Great benefit can unfold. And then from there, just like with any experience that comes and goes, any experience, whether it be in meditation, whether it be with a master, a so-called guru, or some very highly regarded teacher, it's not, that experience may happen, in strong presence, but the experience isn't it. It's then, what do we do with that experience when we go home with it? Because then that's really where the rubber hits the road, you could speak. The spiritual rubber hits the road. It's like, then how do you integrate that? How do you integrate what has been given into your ordinary life? Like how does it live you then? How does it walk? How does it talk? How does it come into relationship with work, with lovers, with household responsibilities, with children, with the community, with how we take care of the earth, with all of these things? So none of it is happening in isolation. And what these teachings, whether it come from spiritual teaching, plant teaching, whatever it is, it's really meant to open us up out of a sense of isolation. So here we may at one point have felt limited and constricted, very confined by beliefs and by conditionings. And as these open and unravel, it's as if we're receding into the spaciousness of who we already are. And then what is it then? How do we take life up from there to integrate what has been given, to really bring it in to every part of our life? So that here, practice, your spiritual maturity is then evolving, so there's an evolution then that can take place, a maturation process of integration. And what is also happening is we're waking up to different energies in our body, our aliveness, our goodness, our unguardedness at the heart. So as these old conditions are clearing out, regardless of how that happens, then there's a capacity to abide more as awareness. So you could say that awakening is the shift out of this isolated sense of self, little me, self-concern, the one that used to chase experience just to feel better, where that never ends. Then you have to replace it with something else. But to then, rather than going out, it's what happens is then it's a turning in, and then we begin to inquire more into the nature of who we are as awareness. And then how does awareness function when it's enlivened? And then this is where post-awakening, where plant medicine can still continue to be of great benefit, because the process of unfolding as awareness never ends. We're infinite. Our capacity is infinite. So we have infinite potential, infinite possibilities to harmonize with every aspect of life. And then utilizing plant medicine in a responsible way can open us up even more, to these energies, to see that we are a reflection of everything. So this sense of separation dissolves more to see the likeness of all things, including the plants, the elements, the rocks, the earth, to see that everything is alive beingness. Everything has an aliveness and a beingness to it that is reflected through us. And how much harmony, how can any residual sense of separation harmonize with all of existence? And then to see, how does our relationship shift then as far as our communities go, as far as our earth? This is why you hear often these stories of men and women who maybe were very destructive and abusive and not contributing to the collective consciousness of humanity, but rather contributing to the collective unconsciousness, and then begin to work with plant medicine and come out of addiction and have all of these dark energies moved out of the system. And then they become pillars in the community, really contributing in very meaningful ways with compassion, with a sameness and evenness. So it evens us out. In my experience, I came to plant medicine after the shift had happened here, where I initially did many forms of spiritual practice, which I don't see any different than using plant medicine. I used yoga, prayer, service, karma yoga, studying, all kinds of things that may have given me some kind of temporary relief or some feeling of being a good person. And they served their time and they served me well. And then I came upon Ramana Maharshi's teaching. And at that time, the question was really burning here. I needed to know who I was. And that was answered. And directly, a direct experience of shifting. My identity shifted from a separate sense to a sense of wholeness where nothing is missing. And life continued. And then later, I had one child, and then my twins were born in the hospital. And it was a very traumatic birth. Now, I didn't know how much trauma I had actually carried in my body after this fairly horrendous kind of hospital experience, where in many ways it was a hospital takeover. And all of us in our bodies have this very deep intelligence. There isn't anyone that's left out of this, and this intelligence is already in harmony with unity, with universal oneness. So when this is disregarded and violated, there will be a shaking, there will be a trauma in the system. There isn't a rightness to that. So when my babies were born, it really very much felt like a violation. And for years, I needed to just get on in life, just keep moving along. And as many of you know, I work as a therapist. And through my therapy work that is very body-centered, one of my clients had told me about plant medicine and told, she just had an intuition that this would be something that I might be interested in. And this was many years ago. And I went to Peru, and I went a number of times. And I think it was on my third visit that I was there, where I was able to really relax into the experience. And it was as if a surgery took place in my around my hip carriage, around the area where I had a C-section. And this energy in my body, I was completely disconnected from it for a number of years. Prior to the birth of my babies, that wasn't the case. But when this happened, all of this energy shut down. It was like the base of my body just closed off. And in that medicine, all of this energy opened up. It was if a surgery, the plants are like doctors, and went in and released all of this trauma, and the energy in my body woke up. And excuse me, I say this because it's very important, especially for women, but not only for women, but for our culture in general, because because of our conditioning and because of confusion around sexuality and sensuality, and because our bodies, especially for women in the birth process, has been taken over by Western medicine, there's a dampening down of the energy in the base of the body. There's a disconnection from the wisdom and the intelligence in our bodies. And when this opened up for me again, it opened me up again to my creativity, to true sensuality, which is very different from sexuality. It's your sensuality is your soft, rich aliveness. It's your creativity. It's your ability to give birth, to birth life, to be life. And here at the base of the body, there is an anchoring and a stability that is a very essential part of of spiritual maturity. As we evolve more, initially we may be in our heads, and when we come out of mind and we detox out of mental conditioning, out of self-referencing, out of self-concern, and we move more into the body, and we move out of fear, out of protection, out of suppressing, shrinking back, holding back in our hearts, and we come into compassion. As we continue to mature, we sink down more into the base of the body where we find true equanimity, true stability, and we also come in touch with our ability to birth, to create. And this is essential in our time, because here, this is how we're connected to our Earth Mother, to the ability to be in harmony with the earth, with her resources. And women right now, if we can, and men, if we can allow ourselves to move away from the masculine structures of spirituality that have been created and have been prioritized, and we can move away from that and trust more that there is a feminine approach, that's more feminine, it's more embodied. It will bring us back to a stability and an ability to create and to harmonize and to be in right relationship with all of creation. And some people have been anchored as a teacher for quite some time. Why? Now, here's this particular question. I'll read this now. They want to know what plant medicine means to me and what compelled me to take on this huge commitment to train as a medicine woman and to fly back and forth to Peru so many times. I think one year I went 6 times. And I've often said it doesn't have anything to do with awakening. Well, I just told you what it has to do with awakening. It isn't the awakening, but it certainly can support it. And then she says, I sense the medicine must at least lighten the pain body, thus allow the body to be more lighter, like a feather or a leaf, allowing it to be prepared for surrender. Yes, yes. Yeah, because often, just sitting in meditation is a beautiful thing. And I think that we don't want to do plant medicine in isolation of a strong practice of presence. And when I take people to Peru or work with them with different plant teachers, I always include meditation and weave the two together. So a strong presence is essential. And yes, this can very much lighten the pain body because it can get into those deeper recesses, those pockets of trauma, of deep depression. And then she says, having said this, why medicine when the ultimate intent is to be liberated from all states and experiences and live from awareness, as awareness, after all, is simply aware of itself and possibly has no awareness of these medicine plants, as it is already whole in and of itself. Okay, well, the wording of that is a little bit tricky. And, someone else asked a similar question. And this is a good question. So what we want to be careful about is not to create dualities, because if we're speaking about wholeness, everything is included in wholeness. So why would anything be left out? Why would anything be left out? And yes, awareness is already here. Call it awareness, call it consciousness. And consciousness is forever calling everything back to itself. Everything. Everything. So that includes everything, right? So there isn't anything that's left out. And like I said before already, that every teaching is a pointer. It's not it. So you could say that the teaching, the medicine, the plants, whatever practice it is that you're doing is a form. And it's a form that is opening the door. If your aspiration is for truth, is for liberation, is for reality, then every teaching is a doorway to the formlessness, to awareness itself. So it's a doorway, but it's not it. And then it's up to us to step through the door. And the more clear our aspiration is for what it is we want, that is what ripens us for surrender to happen. For a surrender into formlessness, into awareness, into the spaciousness that contains all form. And then as this matures, then there isn't any identification with any of the forms that are being revealed in awareness. So here, formlessness and form are the very same thing. So to say something different would be to unnecessarily create a duality. Yeah? So that isn't necessary. In the same way where we can say through realization, I'm not the body. It's very clear to me that I am not this body, and I still have a body. I have a body that has been able to give birth. A body that needs to be fed food, that interacts with other bodies, that has many different aspects. So you could say that awareness, our formless essence, is this multifaceted jewel which has many aspects to it. And as we mature and unfold, more of these jewels, these diamonds, are opened for us to be able to experience ourselves as that. as that. So you can't hang your hat. You can't hang your identity in any one place ever, to say, oh, this is what I am, or this is what I am, No, it's always just formlessness appearing as this, appearing as that, appearing as this. And then everything is a friend. There isn't any fear. Then everything can be met like looking into a mirror. And our sadhanas, our practices, whether it be with medicines, teachers, teachings, our life, our ordinary life, work, sitting, whatever it is, yoga, then everything is a opportunity to polish this mirror, to continue to polish how you're reflecting awareness to itself. Yeah, so nothing has come anew. Nothing has been created. What you are is already and always here. We're just cleaning the mirror. We're just shining, polishing the mirror by clearing off any debris. So whatever is utilized essentially doesn't matter. What matters is how we approach it, what our attitude is, how open we are, our ripeness, what our interest is, what we value. What is it we aspire to in this life? Not as a goal, not as an end point, because there is no end point. Because remember, you're infinite. So there is not an end point. But from a moment to moment realization, in every moment, what is the most important thing? And when we are beholden to this fully, with our hearts, with our bodies, with our beingness, then the harmony, full harmony with all of existence is a given. And so then again, to answer this question, because it comes, why would I train to be a curandero? Why would I be involved in plant medicines? And for the same reason I would be involved in meditation and anything else, is I've taken on the bodhisattva vow, not voluntarily, it was given to me, is that there is no realization here, no liberation here until all beings are liberated. Because all beings are my very self. Yeah? And one of the other great benefits of working with medicine and going into deep meditation is that you are also gifted to be able to release ancestral karma, so that we can really impact the collective consciousness. So it's not personal. It's a contribution. And this is very essential, important in our time right now. And I can't say that I chose it. Perhaps it chose me. And I have no regrets. There's so much more that I could go into in regards to tradition, cosmologies. But what I want to say, just in a nutshell about that, just like with any practice, we can follow the pack, the flock, so to speak, blindly, and forget to ask our own questions. So there are cul-de-sacs all along the way. And what we want to be sharp about is not to get caught in the cul-de-sacs. And what I mean by that is the accoutrements, the paraphernalia, the images, the costumes, the images, the how it looks, the appearance, and feel that in order to get what it's pointing at, that we need to take up and get involved in, some kind of the form of it. And so my encouragement is to just go to be clear on what it is you aspire to take it up responsibly, and to remember what your interest is, what's the most important thing. And this is how we're able to stay on the direct path with whatever it is we're being involved with. And this is what allows you to continue to stay anchored and to be holden to truth. So I suggest when you do get information to see the source, check out the source carefully that you're getting it from, and trust your own experience. There's something that my teacher, Adi Shanti, always says, is to never abdicate your authority. Ultimately, all of us are in different places at different times, and we may benefit from something at one time and not another, and it may not be the case for some else. There's something feel still I want to say, and that's about the master plant teacher, Mapacho, which is sacred tobacco. It's something that I work with, and it's something that we can work with outside of Peru, which is very wonderful. And I want to just continue a little bit on this about how it works with the lower chakras. And we all know that in our cultures, there's a great deal of distortion around sexual energy. And it's been distorted for centuries, thousands of years. And there's been many kinds of traditions, specifically masculine Catholic traditions, that have tried to suppress sexual energy in both men and in women, and with really bizarre ways of doing so. And as a result of suppression, all of these energies have become greatly distorted. And in the Catholic traditions and in some others, then the way of acting out on this has become more evident and obvious, and how priests who didn't have an opportunity to clarify this energy, to understand it, to allow it to become clean and to return to its natural purity, goodness. We're not given these energies by accident. And so when they're not allowed to be understood and to be clarified as sensuality, then they get acted out upon. And there's an imbalance. And so we see this imbalance specifically in porn, which is the largest growing industry. We see it in sex slavery all over all the continents. And it's very sad, and it's so distorted. And I feel that this is the greatest gift that the elder plant, sacred Mapacho, brings to us, because it really clarifies these energies so that they can be used for the purposes that they were meant to be used for. This is for our creativity, for our ability to contribute to community, to building, to growing, to joining together in a way that is loving and compassionate and serves the whole. I didn't want to leave that out, because sacred tobacco, well, it is sacred, but it's probably the most used and also abused plant medicine around. And this can happen with any plant. And I wanted to just put a little bit of a word in for that, because it's a plant that I feel is very necessary in all of our cultures. And I have seen it do incredibly good work for helping people to align, with their true power as a gift.